This is going to be a very difficult conversation video. I'm going to talk about D&D Game Masters and specifically Game Masters having mental health issues. I'm going to talk about this from my sort of limited experience. I am not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I am just a dude who loves to play D&D, who has had my fair share of demons, and I have learned some very bad ways to deal with it, and I've learned some healthier ways to deal with it, healthier for me and for everyone else. And I'm going to share them with you in this video. So here we go. Sometimes in life, we have mental health issues. This could range from just being stressed out for a week because you have a lot of life stuff going on to battling with something more intense, like maybe you have actual anxiety or actual depression, or maybe even something worse than those things. Or maybe those things are a part of a bigger thing. Maybe, you have some kind of social thing that makes it hard to operate like you would like to operate socially with other people. And D&D is a very social game. So here's the thing. I don't have like what I would call crippling levels of like anxiety or depression. We are all unique people and we all have our own demons, man. And I'm no exception. I've got some failed relationships in my past. I've got some trauma in my past. And I have realized, especially lately, that those things affect me in a wide range of different ways, not just in gaming, but in other areas of life. But they also affect me in gaming. And I've also learned through this chapter of my life, which I would consider a healing and self-discovery journey. I would say that I've learned how to better address my own demons and kind of become aware of them and how they cause problems between me and other people. And this is especially important when running D&D, because when we run D&D as the game master, we sort of have this bigger responsibility of running the game. And then, kind of playing host to our friends and the people we game with. But at the same time, this added responsibility can really exacerbate things like anxiety. And it can really, the responsibility can also really weigh you down and make your depression worse sometimes if you're depressed. Now, for me personally, I don't deal with I would say depression really very much at all. For me in my life, I actually don't know a whole lot about that. I'm very grateful for that. I know a lot more about anxiety than I do depression because I do have quite a bit of anxiety, actually, relatively speaking, especially at this point in my life, having more responsibility than ever, trying to do more than ever. And I have absolutely experienced quite a bit of anxiety coming into my D&D games, coming into my gaming life. I've canceled many sessions on account of just feeling like I didn't have the mental energy to even talk to people, much less run a game. So I want to discuss this. I want to basically talk about what I've learned about this. And so here we go. So the first thing I think that is important to understand is that trying to hide or push down our anxiety or depression or whatever negative things you're feeling, this is certainly not the right approach. My natural response, I think, to feeling a lot of anxiety or whatever is to try to ignore it and stay consistent with my gaming and stuff. And I have learned that this is actually not a very good approach, I don't think. I think that this makes it worse. I think that this causes it to build up. And there are certain levels of anxiety where that just actually doesn't work, literally doesn't work. And it will make you kind of feel insane. It'll make you feel insane. Okay, so there is most definitely a good reason to think to yourself, I feel too anxious to play D&D tonight or this weekend, or I feel too depressed or whatever, insert whatever thing. There's certainly a place for that. Now, the way that we deal and solve those things is very complicated. I can't tell you in this video how to fix your anxiety. I cannot tell you how to fix your depression. All I can do, and the goal of this video, is to give you my sort of like experiential anecdotes about how I have managed to any degree to kind of like make it so that these things hopefully don't wreak havoc on my desire to play D&D with other people and make it successful. So here we go. I believe step number one needs to be for us to be honest with ourselves about what is happening. I think that we always have a tendency to want to downplay the stuff going on with us. Feeling really anxious or depressed about something, I think that there's a natural inclination to say, oh, just like, ignore it because it's probably fine. That's the first inclination. And maybe there's a level of general daily human anxiety that we can get away with that with. But if it's to a point where it's starting to actually affect your life, and I don't know where the line is necessarily, I would say the line is if it starts to affect your ability to like run D&D or plan D&D and stay happy and pumped about it. Like, I think if it's starting to come into that to any degree and like change that, then you probably should be aware and acknowledge, I've got an anxiety problem going on. There's some kind of problem. Not that like you have a problem or you're a bad person or that you're a broken human. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is just being honest with ourselves about the status of what's going on. And the reason I say that is because ignoring it and pushing it down, I've learned so viscerally that this is such a dangerous game to play, and it does not pan out well. I think a lot of people, and I used to be kind of like one of these people, I think that a lot of people think that they should just push away their anxiety. I think that only works if you can have complete control of all of the factors going on in your life. And I don't think that the vast majority of humans have control of all of the factors in their life. I think it's fair to say that all of us do have to deal with things that are unpleasant sometimes, not fun sometimes, responsibilities that put a lot of weight on our shoulders. We have to solve problems in creative ways that we would rather not have to solve or deal with. The vast majority of humans are going to have at least some measure of like negative or unexpected or complicated things coming at them on any given day or in any given week. And they're going to have a certain amount of anxiety about those things. Or maybe just anxiety in general. Maybe the anxiety was there before those things arrived. For me, that's not the case. For me, those things cause anxiety. The anxiety is not like in a vacuum. I'm not anxious at all. It's always external circumstances that cause me to feel anxious, or even depressed or anything. And as it relates to D&D, D&D is ultimately a source of great joy for me. It's ultimately a source of like escape for me. And it's not just like escapism. It's like actually it's akin to playing the guitar for me, or drawing a picture. It's something that I love to do, but I also do it with other people, and I actually inherently love to spend time with other people. So I know there's a problem if I'm feeling so anxious that D&D is starting to feel like something that might be too much for me. I have to take a moment and I have to really accept that there's a problem. Now, it doesn't mean that there's a problem as in like, oh, I'm a bad person now. I mean, there's a problem. I am experiencing a problem, and I shouldn't minimize that. I really shouldn't minimize that. So being self-aware about that and then acknowledging it openly, being like, oh my God, I have so much, insert whatever negative emotion or feeling. I have so much of this right now in my life that this thing I love, D&D, is starting to actually seem like a more stressful thing than a fun thing to me. I should probably go about some process of like fixing this or figuring this out. And so that's the first step. And then that leads us to the second step, which I think is one of the only and best ways I've found to actually deal with it and try to mitigate those feelings. So let's talk about that, and that is communication. Now, we don't often realize this, but communication is going to happen one way or another. We might communicate by lashing out if we get too stressed out. We might say things or do things that are like harsh, that aren't actually dealing with the problem. It's just us reacting because we're starting to crumble under the stress. Our constitution is starting to crumble under the stress. We're starting to lash out. Or we might communicate through isolation. We might withdraw, which is its own form of communication. And I'll also say this, if you're feeling a tendency to isolate, I would call this like, sometimes we do need time alone. Sometimes we need a break. We really do. I just really want to make sure that I say this, that feeling the tendency to isolate can be a bad sign, especially if that's not normal for you. And it might be a sign that it would actually be good for you to clear the air and to talk to people. And anyway, so that's what I'm gonna say about that. But now let's move on to the third type of communication, which is actually talking to people. And that I think has proven for me to be the most useful tool. And so let's say, for example, that I'm having a lot of stressful things going on in the week and they are beating me down. And by the time Saturday gets here, playing D&D, I'm thinking to myself, the idea of having people over into my home is usually a source of great joy for me. But I'm experiencing so many emotional malfunctions right now, anxiety, depression, whatever, that it has gone from being a fun, joyful thing to feeling like an anxious thing or feeling like a thing I don't have energy for. First of all, take a moment and realize how sad that is. That is a sad place to be, and it's real life for a lot of people. A lot of people. Now, I don't know if this manifests this way for other people in D&D terms, but just in general, if you are getting so beat down by the circumstances of life or by the chemicals in your brain that you are arriving at a place where a thing that once was joyful to you seems stressful to you, or if you feel like you want to isolate, or you're just withdrawing from people because of not feeling like you have the capacity or the energy for it, friend, I'm sorry, you are going through it. We need to take a moment and just realize how powerfully bad that feels, and then how very little help there is for anyone who feels that way. And it's just a human thing, especially in our modern day, when you feel that way. And when those things start to happen to you, I mean, no one usually is really coming to help you or save you. You're kind of just on your own, but it gets worse, maybe because you isolate or whatever. So here's the method that I've found to kind of try to counter that. The method that I've found to try to counter that is this. I want to reach out and be honest with everyone. So for example, due to some circumstances in my life, hence that's kind of what prompted me to want to record this video, I canceled my last core group D&D session on last Saturday. And here's what happened. I was tempted to just isolate. I was tempted to just cancel it. And I actually felt pretty bad about it. Okay, so I do want to play D&D, but there were some circumstances going on in my life that made me feel so stressed out that the thought of having people over and playing D&D was actually more stressful than fun, which right away is a very sad place to be. But then like, what do we do about it? And I was tempted to just isolate, just cancel and not talk to anyone, close out the outside world and just focus on work and cleaning the house and working out. That's where I go when I'm at my worst. I want to isolate. I want to cut off all communication with everyone, and I want to only be in my office or at the gym, or I want to be cleaning the house. I guess because I have some kind of like mechanism inside me that associates those things with fixing my problems. So those are like the places where I go to when I feel very stressed and overwhelmed. and everything else. But that actually only makes the problem worse, I've learned. And I've learned that through years of doing it. So what I've learned about communication is that it's best to do it. And it's amazing how much better it makes me feel to do this. So here's what I do. I will reach out to my friends. Granted, if any of my friends are watching this, know that I have not perfected this. High key, have not perfected this. And I am trying to get better at it. But I try to, instead of just canceling it, I try to be one level or maybe even 2 levels honest with my friends. So I'll say something like, hey, I am really sorry. I have to cancel D&D this weekend. Here's why. Okay, now, normally I would just say I have to cancel D&D this weekend. But that is not going to be as helpful. Here's why. This is where it becomes helpful. This week, this and this and this happened. I feel like this and this and this. The reason I'm canceling D&D is because, explain the mechanism behind it. I hope you'll understand. I really value you as a friend. I hope that you'll still be my friend. I'm really fighting the urge to isolate right now. And you might even go as far as to say, I think the problem is, and then state the problem, if they're like a really good friend who you trust. And then maybe say, if you do have a plan for fixing it, say, I have a plan for fixing it, and then say your plan. If you don't, say, I'm not sure how I'm going to fix it. Now, here's why I think communicating in this way is important and beneficial. And the short answer is just because it makes you feel better. I think this makes me feel better. And I've started to try to do this in all areas of my life, not just with D&D. I'm just talking about this from a game master perspective because this channel is for game masters and it does affect D&D for me. But talking to people in this manner sheds a light on the problems you're going through. It helps to shed a light on what's going on, and it basically helps to like resolve tension between you and those other people, because sometimes when we want to isolate, here's what can happen. We want to isolate, we do isolate. We feel guilty about, isolating from that person, but we also feel a little bit, maybe a little, and you may not even notice this is happening. This might not be happening with you, but we might sometimes also feel complicated about it in the sense that like, I wish that person would reach out and help me, or I wish that person would ask me what's wrong, or I wish that they would, show some empathy or some support. And maybe you're even low-key mad that they're not doing that. Now, that's probably like a very small deal, but when you compound that over days and months and years, that can become a factor. So just talking about it, just saying the words and then them responding to it can be so therapeutic, and it can help to eliminate a lot of little negative feelings that can build up over time that we didn't even realize were happening. So at the end of the day, what I really want to say is this. If you, as a game master, are experiencing some anxiety, experiencing some depression, experiencing some mental health challenges, I feel for you. I hope that you find a way to make it better. I have shared the methods that I use that I have found make it better in this video, but this is such a complex problem and everyone is different. So I would like for you to comment and let me know what you deal with and how you work on it. And if you don't know how to solve it, say that in the comments and I'll try to respond to all of them, because it's possible that might even just, if it gives a little bit of help, if it lets you know even just a little bit that somebody cares enough to read the comment, respond to it, maybe that will be helpful to you, because sometimes just a little bit of positivity goes a long way to make you feel better, and one day can help you to get things back on track and make a lot of things feel better. So boom, that's all I have to say on this one. I want to give a big shout out to our gold supporters, especially our first gold supporter, Craig, who is a member of our Ko-Fi, who supports the channel. Thank you so much, Craig, for funding the channel and for making these amazing videos possible. If any of you would like to support this channel, you can go down and visit my Ko-Fi link in the description. You can also join my Discord, support the channel and the awesome work we're doing here at GM Philosophy, helping game masters to run games that are more fun for themselves and their players. With that being said, I'm going to basically call this one here and call it done. Thank you so much for watching. Roll some D100s for me at your next game. I will see you awesome people on the next one.